I'm trying something new because some people shared with me that the way that they listen to podcasts is mostly on YouTube. Well, as you may know, you can't really just post audio onto YouTube. So I am currently recording this episode with video, and this is new for me, but I'm willing to give it a try and try to reach those people who are wanting to watch their podcasts. So if you're just listening to this, just the audio, then it's quite possible that there is also a video option if you go and search for it on YouTube. Dr. Williams' podcast does have a YouTube page. It's just at this current moment, as I'm making this recording, it's not yet up and running. So there's nothing to watch on the Dr. Williams podcast YouTube channel. But by the time this episode comes out, maybe I will have gotten that all together and you can do that. It's a little different for me to be on video than just doing the audio. And it comes with a whole set of different kind of requirements that come with editing and things like that. So this is a learning curve and I'm in it. So today, what I want to talk about is resonance. And this is something that we all can relate to. You know when there's information that resonates with you. It's not just information. It could be an experience. It could be a feeling. It could just be that you walk into a room and you feel resonance. It doesn't necessarily have to be when you're reading or watching something. It doesn't have to be like that, but it's something that we all can relate to. And we have these moments in life where we resonate with something. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because I think that what resonance really is just another way of describing alignment. And yet, resonance is a word that people are more commonly familiar with and something that is more relatable because alignment, unless you're in the spiritual community, that might not make a lot of sense to you. But everybody knows what resonance means. So today I want to talk about what resonance means spiritually and what it means critically, or just kind of looking into it, and how understanding what your resonance is telling you will help you to understand yourself more and what you want in life, because there's a communication that's happening there. So welcome to today's episode on resonance. I'm Dr. Williams, and this is my podcast. I have 2 graduate degrees in psychology, am a licensed mental health counselor, and an expert in the area of spirituality. I am devoted to living my best life and am sharing it with all of you. I'm bringing my expertise, education, and life experiences to you through this podcast. Everyone deserves to enjoy life, and that is what I'm here to talk about. Depression, anxiety, grief, you name it, we all go through it at one time or another. I believe there's a better way to come at these things than mainstream mental health care offers, and I'm here to offer you my perspective and dig into discovering how you can feel good no matter what life throws at you. It is my intention to contribute goodness to this world, and the content herein is how I do that. But one disclaimer before we dive in: should you decide to apply the information offered here, be prepared for improvements in your life. You may even live happily ever after, and you'll only have yourself to thank. This is Feel Good Now, the Dr. Williams podcast. I mentioned that the feeling of resonance is just another word for alignment. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you've heard me talk about alignment a lot. It's something that I bring up probably every episode because it's kind of the basis of what I am practicing. I'm practicing my own alignment in life because I understand that when you are in an aligned state, then that means that you are in a place of being your whole self. It's basically when your human consciousness is aligned with your spiritual consciousness. there's two aspects to us as human beings. And there is that physical aspect of being a human being. And then there's still that vibrational, energetic, spiritual aspect of us, which is actually the greater part of who we really are. And that is the eternal part. That's your soul. That's the part that came into this experience to have a physical experience. But ultimately, we are spiritual beings. When you're in that aligned state, when you have both pieces, both vibrational realities of your physical consciousness and your spiritual consciousness combined as one, that is the sweet spot to live life. Because when you're doing that, you're always enjoying it. It's satisfying. And that's what we talk about here on the podcast, because that's why it's called Feel Good Now, because that's how you know you're in an aligned state, is if you're feeling good. And ultimately, that's how life is supposed to be. That is the experience we came for. We came to experience things in these physical bodies, but we intended to enjoy it and be satisfied with it. And when we're not, that is a sign to us that we're out of alignment vibrationally with our true selves. Okay, so all of that said about alignment. Well, I think resonance is pretty much the same thing, but it's something that people are more familiar with. You can probably think of a specific time where you felt resonance. What that is you lining up vibrationally with your spiritual self. And the reason it feels like such a strong, overwhelming knowing is because your inner being is telling you, yes, okay, you got it. This is it right here. This is something that is on your path in this life. And that's why it feels good. Because we all have this thing called the vortex. And the vortex sounds kind of science fiction-y, but it's not. And it's something that you have created. Everybody has one. And it's one of the first things that you have ever created in relationship to your physical existence living on Earth. Because the vortex is what holds all of the things that you are choosing to experience. The vortex basically is a holding place for all of your desires. Everything that you have put into the vortex has been put there through the clarity of knowing what you want. So when you feel resonance with something, then that's basically just telling you, oh, this is something that's in my vortex. This is something that I have an alignment with, that I wanted to experience in this life. And that's why resonance is such a personal experience. And it's not the same for everybody, right? Different people resonate with different things. And that's because we are all the creators of our reality and choosing what we want to experience in this life specifically. Now, you have lived before. You have been on planet Earth living a physical experience before, and you're going to do it again after this one. And your vortex is a compilation of everything you've already experienced and everything you are desiring to bring into your experience again. So it's basically everything that makes up who you are and who you will ever be. But you're constantly putting things in and taking things out. And when I say taking things out, I just mean those are the manifestations that are coming into your experience. Your vortex is the place where they are held. And then as you practice allowing those things to come to you, they come out of your vortex and into your physical experience. That's how creation works. As those things are manifested and they come into your physical experience, then you experience more contrast, which you've also heard me talk a lot about. The contrast is that stuff that goes, ugh, I don't want that. And then you experience that, and that creates clarity about what you do want. Into the vortex it goes. then you work on allowing some more, it comes and is manifested into your physical experience. So with resonance, basically resonance is just communication. Communication from your inner being, giving you a good feeling of, yeah, okay, this feels true to me. And that's why I think it's important to understand that not everybody resonates with the same thing, because we all have a different makeup of life experiences that we are choosing to have. I personally know a lot of people who resonate with Christianity or just the Bible in general. They feel like that resonates with their direction in this life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I resonated with the Bible for a good part of my life, actually a really big chunk of my life, because it was something that was present from the time I was born up until just several years ago when I got turned more onto a spiritual path than a religious one. But the Bible has a lot of really great information in it, and a lot of people resonate with the information offered in it. Here's the thing, though. Do you resonate with everything? Are you just accepting it because you have accepted that there's truth in the Bible, and therefore you accept all of it as truth? Or are you feeling your way through it? Because that's how you can really know what is true for you. Now, just having words in a book does not make it law. Having words in a book offers information for resonance, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will. Only you get to decide that. And you do that by taking in the information, sitting with it, and deciding if it feels good to you. The reason I bring up Christianity and the Bible specifically is because I feel like those who adhere to a Christian lifestyle and those who are studying the Bible and wanting to know more are people that want to know what God thinks about things. And that really drives a lot of desire in understanding life. And that's why people feel like they have to do things a certain way in order to be in God's graces. I think that what resonance is a way for you to know what God does think about things. When you turn it inward, this could be a thought, it could be an experience, anything that you want to know, what does God think about this? Or how does God feel about this? And you're using that as your basis for your behavior. If you sit with it and it feels like it resonates, then that is your guidance. That's telling you, okay, I'm feeling like this resonates with me and it feels good to take this on as my behavior. Then you can't go wrong because your inner being is God. That's that source energy that's within all of us. And that feeling of resonance is communication to you that this is the right thing for you. The problem that a lot of people fall into is once they feel that resonance, they assume that everybody else needs to do the same thing because it felt so right to them when it resonated with them. Then they want to define that as the difference between right and wrong. And that's just not the case. Because someone else may resonate with something that is in opposition to what you resonated with. That doesn't make it any less right for them because they had that same experience of resonance. Understanding this could bring us all together. If we just understand that everybody is feeling their way through their own unique life experience based on their own unique vortex, which they have created. It comes down to the live and let live philosophy, right? You've heard that, but have you ever really thought about it? What it really means to live and let live. It means you get to live your life in the best way that you see fit for you, and letting live means you're letting everyone else do the same thing. There is no judgment there. There is no criticism. It's just live and let live. So it can be hard to think about that, because if resonance means that that is the way God thinks or feels about something, then that means that God can be super wishy-washy, right? Because a different person is saying, well, my source of God feels this way, which is in opposition to what your source of God feels. Well, yeah, because God is everything. God is everything good. And that feeling of resonance is telling you this is good for you. It's not right and wrong. This is not a black and white kind of existence. This is a inclusive existence. It is all inclusive. And that includes the negative things. In fact, that's the way law of attraction works. It doesn't exclude anything. And that's why you get what you think about. Whatever you focus on is what you create in your experience, whether you want it or not. That's how negative things happen, because you're focused on the negative things, and then it manifests in your life. But when you're focused on the positive things, those manifest in your life, and you get to take credit for both. And usually we don't want to take credit for the bad things, right? We want to blame that on someone else. And most of the time, it has something to do with someone else. And then we just blame that person. But the truth of the matter is, law of attraction is all inclusive. And it just is attraction, attraction, attraction. You are attracting whatever it is that comes into your experience. So, resonance, feeling truth in something. True for you. True for you. Other people, true for them. You resonate, they resonate. Some of you are going to match up on that, and some of you aren't. It just is that way, and it's okay. One of the things that really got me thinking about this topic of resonance was words. Words don't really teach, because words are just somebody's own perspective, right? But you can feel resonance with people's words. And when they're expressing themselves through words, that might feel true to you. And that's why I'm doing the podcast. I understand that me saying something to you is not necessarily going to be the end all. And I wouldn't want it to be. When I am talking to you, this is just me being me, as close to my true self as I possibly can be in this moment, and sharing it with you. And sometimes you're going to feel resonance with that, and sometimes you aren't. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm just sharing with you what resonates with me. And it really just allows you to know me and who I am and what I'm focused on in my life. When we resonate together, because I've said something and you're like, okay, that feels true to me, then you have a resonance also. Now we've made a connection. We've made a soul kind of connection, because my resonance told me this is true for me. Your resonance is telling you the same thing, and we're both connecting on the same subject.
Would you like to have an ad-free experience? I know you probably have my intro and my outro memorized by now, and maybe you just kind of want to cut out that ad space this one right now that you're listening to, so that you can just get all of the content of the episode? Well, if that does sound like something that you're interested in, I've put together a Patreon account, and I'm offering all of the episodes I've recorded so far without that extra stuff, so you just get the content. And I'm also going to be offering members early access to the newly released episodes. So I'll be putting those on Patreon several days before the episode releases on all the other podcast platforms. So you'll be able to listen before everybody else. You'll also get access to the Dr. Williams Pod. It's a community where we're going to be able to interact and know each other on a more personal level. I'm going to be offering some Q&As so that we can really dive into some of these topics, and you can share your thoughts and I'll share my thoughts, and we can have a dialogue going. I think that we all could benefit from that. So that's something else I'm going to be offering. In addition, I'm going to be putting together a lot of exclusive content, things that I'm working on, creative projects that I have that are only going to be available to those people who are members on Patreon. You can find the link to the Patreon in the show notes, and I'm also going to post on social media, so you should be able to find it on all of my pages there as well. I look forward to getting to know all of you guys better and engaging in some co-creating together. For now, I'll just get back to the episode. See you on Patreon.
Even though words do not necessarily promote resonance, they can offer an opportunity for resonance. And we see it a lot when people share something emotional, like when somebody stands up at a wedding or a funeral and they're sharing something that's emotional and the audience feels that. Well, not only are they resonating individually for themselves, they are also feeling the resonance of that person. There's a vibration that comes with that. Somebody who is in alignment with themselves and speaking about something that truly resonates with them, you're going to feel that. And a lot of times that promotes you feeling similar. I get very emotional listening to other people who are expressing themselves emotionally. It doesn't even have to be somebody I know. It could just be somebody random. It could be a video I watch or a movie I watch and I cry. Like, I am a very emotionally influenced person. I feel their resonance in the moment. I take that on and I experience it. And a lot of people refer to that as empathy. And I've mentioned that that's why I had a strong connection with people when I was in the counseling role, because people would come in and express themselves deeply to me. And I felt it. I felt it in the moment, and they could tell that I felt it. And there's a bond that happens there. I think that's why we have a tendency to hang out with people who are like-minded to us. We gravitate towards people who have similar views because that feeling is there. And that feeling of resonance, when you connect with somebody who sees something the same way, is a strong feeling. It feels good and comforting. It feels safe. And that's why we have a tendency to create cliques and gather people who look at things in a similar way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what we do. But really what we're doing is chasing that feeling of resonance. We like that. We like that feeling. The message I would offer is to find that feeling within yourself. You don't have to look for it in others. It's always here. And even when you do experience it because you're responding to someone else, that's really still you connecting with you in that alignment of the two aspects of yourself. your physical consciousness, and your spiritual vibrational consciousness. Because when that connection happens, that is that feeling of resonance. And I think just acknowledging that that's what's happening, helps a lot to nurture that relationship with your inner being and not make it so much about the relationships you have with other people. It's really not about them. Actually, nothing is. But this episode is not the place to get into that. But when you have that feeling, that is what's happening. It's you and you connecting. No matter what the stimulus is, a show, a book, another person, it's all the same. But it is that relationship with you and you that is feeling good. So, I really wanted to talk about resonance as a way to bridge the connection with alignment, because a lot of times people don't understand what I'm talking about when I say alignment. But that's it. That's the feeling. And you know that feeling. You've had that feeling. That's the feeling we're all going for all the time. That feels really nice. My own spiritual journey has kind of been a gradual exploration and expansion, because I was born into a religious following. Not directly. It was more my grandmother who influenced religion at first. But religion was kind of the foundation of spiritual belief in my life. And it wasn't until I started to pursue a greater understanding of spirituality that I found my own path. When I did that, things changed a lot for me. But it was the feeling of resonance which pushed me in a different direction. And I would say pulled me more away from religiosity and towards spirituality. It was, well, in my notes here, I was going to tell you that it was the Conversations with God book series by Neale Donald Walsch. But actually, a recent conversation that I had with my uncle, who is kind of a distant uncle. We don't communicate a lot. Sometimes years go between our communications. But he is a strong, spiritually aligned individual. And I started to look to him when I started to have my own spiritual awakening. But I realized recently, when I was talking to him about books, that years ago, as an undergrad, I went to undergraduate school in Hawaii on the Big Island, and my uncle also lived on the Big Island at the time. So we got a lot closer during that time just because we were closer in proximity. We were able to hang out and converse more in person. Well, he had offered me a book, unlike anything I would have read. It's not something that I would have chosen at the bookstore, and I probably wouldn't have read it if I had been in another situation where I was more busy and involved with things, but because I had time. I would go to my classes and I would do my schoolwork, and then I had time. So I read this book, and the name of the book is Emissary of Love. And I can't remember the author right now, but it's talking about the psychic children of the world. And the book stuck with me. There were things in the book about these children who were living this psychic lifestyle, and their message was always love. And I thought about it throughout the years, and I just mentioned it recently to my uncle in an email, and I wanted to name the author. So I looked up the book, was able to find the author, and then I read that there was a foreword in that book by Neale Donald Walsch. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, wow. Because Neale Donald Walsch is the author of the Conversations with God book series, which I felt like had turned my path from a religious one into a spiritual one. But then come to find out that that influence really dated back to this other book the emissary of love that my uncle had given to me. So it's interesting to see that. A lot of times when people talk about their spiritual awakening, it's something that happens drastically and impactfully and kind of swiftly. And for me, it was more of a gradual progression. I had read the Bible, and I mentioned that to you guys in another episode. I had read the Bible all the way through, and at that time felt that I was a Christian. I was devoted to the information in the Bible. And after I was done reading the Bible, I wanted more information. And that led me to going to the library and finding the Conversations with God book series. Now, when I first started reading these books, it did not resonate with me because I had a very active vibration of the information in the Bible that was alive in my experience. I had just spent 4 years studying it, and it was very active in my life. But something kept me reading. And I realized that as I read more, I decided to open up more and allow the information to come in and just see what I thought or how I felt about it. And that's really when the big changes started happening for me. It's when I started to feel resonance with the information, even though it opposed what was in the Bible. It was a big step for me. It really was. It changed everything for me, and in a really good way, because there is a lot of information in the Bible that I was not feeling good about. A lot of things that I felt guilty about. According to Christian belief, we're all sinners. Therefore, we are all behaving in certain ways that oppose how we're supposed to be behaving. And that didn't feel good. But once I started reading the Conversations with God book series, the information there did feel better, and it resonated more. And all of a sudden, I did not feel guilty anymore. I didn't feel guilty about anything because there was no reason to, because I understood things differently. There was no pressure. What I know now is that my inner being was working through this book to communicate to me what was true for me. And I was able to find my own resonance with the information as I read it. I feel like a lot of fear went away. I had a lot of fear before, and a lot of that resolved when I started to feel resonance with information that was more spiritually aligned and felt better to me. So then I did get another fear. Only my fear now was, okay, so I understand that we come and we live this life, and then when we do what we refer to as dying, we go back into non-physical, and then when or if we choose, we come back and live a physical existence again. So then all of a sudden I started to get afraid that I wasn't going to remember my resonance. I wasn't going to remember all this information that I resonated so strongly with, which took a big portion of my life to get to. Now that I know it, I don't want to let go of it. And I was afraid I'd lose it, because we all come into the world the same way as babies, and then we're all learning all over again. So for several months, I had this fear of not knowing what I know now to be true, until I got the message from my inner being that said, "What makes you think this is the first time you knew it?" And man, that was a comfort. And I thought, yeah, who's to say? Who's to say that I didn't know this information in my past life or several past lives? Because my vortex is full of what I'm experiencing, and I am knowing this information to be true for me. It doesn't mean that I necessarily put it in this lifetime. And that felt really nice because it helped me to know I'm not going to lose myself. Knowing what I know is a part of who I am. And it's taken a very major role in this lifetime. I'm spending my career focused on spirituality and spiritual growth and living that lifestyle. Well, maybe I did that in my past life. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but that message resonated with me in a really big way. This may not be the first time I've known this. Everything about who I am right now is a collection of everything I've ever experienced in all of life, in all the lifetimes I've lived. I, right now in this moment, am everything I have become. And living in this life and feeling my way through what I resonate with is helping me to define who I am expanding to be. There are no regressions. There is only progression. There is only expansion and growth. So I don't have to worry about going backwards because that's not the way evolution works. I am an evolving being, and I can only be more than what I am right now. I can never be less. And the same is true for you, for all of you. Did you guys listen to my interview with Jen Navarro? When we were talking after the interview that day, I had, mentioned in the interview that I'd only been listening to Abraham Hicks for a few months. I think we're just now coming up on a year, coming into March now, of when I had first, in this lifetime, been introduced to Abraham Hicks. But Jen was surprised to hear that. She was surprised that I had not been studying the teachings of Abraham for years. She said that she thought it had been 10 years or so, given the way that I talk about it. That was a nice thing for me to hear. And it resonated with me because I thought, okay, this is just confirming for me that this is not the first time I've known this information. I couldn't possibly be talking about this with the type of resonance that I feel if I had not been living it longer than a year. So I know that. I know that within myself, that the power that comes with this knowing is something that is a greater part of who I am. And it's not something that has just been a year in the making. This is something bigger. This is something grander. This is expansion beyond what I can comprehend. That I know this information and I can speak to it with a feeling of authority because I know it. It resonates with me, right? I know it. It's me connecting with my inner being and having this stream of consciousness come through me. And that's pretty cool. So let's talk about when something does not resonate, because that happens too. Let's say that law of attraction does not resonate with you. When something doesn't resonate, that is just as useful as when something does, because that is also communication that you have with your inner being. And it's telling you, okay, this doesn't necessarily resonate with you, so it may be off your path for your intentions in this lifetime. But knowing that allows you to look elsewhere for other information. And that's kind of what happened with me and reading the Bible. I read the Bible, some of it resonated, but a lot of it did not. And that pushed me into further discovery of spiritual information. And then once I sought after that further information, I found more resonance with the information that I had been led to. That in turn turned into more directions down different paths, which led to more resonance. It's been an evolving process for me to find my spiritual way and know what I know. And I'm not saying it's done. It's far from done. I'm only 40 years old. Well, here in several weeks, I'll be 40 years old. And I feel so appreciative that I came into this knowing at a relatively young age in this lifetime, because I get to spend my whole life focused on this in a really big way. And I mean that, my whole life. I have not necessarily always known what I've come to know in this lifetime, but when I take a review of my whole life and I look back, I can see how the path was always there. There was no diverting from the path. It was just an expansion. It was an evolution of moving from sets of information into other sets of information. And along the way, feeling resonance, choosing, okay, this resonates, but this doesn't. This resonates, but this doesn't. And that is how I have defined who I am. We're all doing this all the time. To know yourself is to know what you resonate with. And that communicates to you if you are your whole self in that moment. If you know what resonates, then you know you. And it all comes down to that. That is the only relationship in this entire life, any life, all of life, that really matters. It is you connecting with you. So, what is it for you? What do you resonate with?
That concludes this episode, but if you don't want to wait for the next episode to come out, I have more for you at drwilliamspodcast.com. You can learn more about me and my journey to podcasting, find all the ways to connect with me on social media, and there's a button to subscribe so you're the first to know what's new and upcoming. You also can shoot me an email at hello@drwilliamspodcast.com. You are so special to me, and your support does not go unnoticed. I want to support you too. This podcast is my outlet for growth, because when you teach something, you hold yourself accountable and apply the information in life. But the inspiration for these episodes comes in a variety of ways, and one of those is through you. I want you to feel like this is your show too. So send me a message and let me know which episode is your favorite and why. And tell me if there's a topic you'd want to hear me talk about. Your feedback applies to so many people, and your suggestion could change someone's life for the better. The best way to do this is by subscribing to the show and leaving a review through your favorite podcast platform. I really listen to you guys, and this dialogue feeds my soul. You say that you're a fan of me, but truth be told, I am a fan of yours. Everything is working out for each of us, and we're all in this together.